Welcome to the Munro Review, where it's all about connecting, sharing, and valuing the arts in the central San Joaquin Valley. I'm Donald Munro. Today is March 29th, and we're going to be talking about the busy art scene in April. In just a few moments, we'll be chatting with David Fox of the Keyboard Concert Series and Jack Fortner of Orpheus Chamber Ensemble about the upcoming visit of the acclaimed Alexander String Quartet. And we have a special treat, an update on Fresno State professor Benjamin Boone, who is spending the year in Ghana, and his new jazz album featuring the poetry of Philip Levine. But first, let's recap some of what I've been covering on MunroReview.com. People have waited a long time for the chance to see a local production of the musical Mamma Mia. Good Company Players nabbed the rights for the Fresno area premiere. In a preview story, I gave readers a glimpse behind the scenes at one of the most important aspects of the show, the live backup singing. Now, if you're at all familiar with the music of ABBA, and it's hard to imagine someone who isn't, you know that people expect a distinctive sound, those layered tracks, rhythmic intricacies, and percussive vocalizations. The ensemble is as important as any of the principal singers. In the recording studio, a band is able to layer track upon track to create a rich sound like ABBA's. But when you're singing live, it's more complicated. The number of vocal parts in the GCP production varies depending on the song, but there are as many as 15 in addition to the principal vocal lines. A good portion of that singing is done from backstage. It fell to vocal coach Judith Dickinson to get the singers up to speed. If you could take a peek backstage during the number One of Us, for example, you'd find the ensemble crowded around two microphones singing their hearts out. It can be a tricky setup. They have to be exactly in sync with the principals on stage, they have to be in perfect balance, and often they have to interrupt one of their many costume changes and sing in various states of undress. All that work pays off in Good Company's Mamma Mia. The vocals in this show are very strong, and they seem to surround you in the intimate space of Roger Rocca's dinner theater. In Dancing Queen, when that dramatic chorus ascends to those heart-tugging high notes, it's almost as if you're taking off and flying with the singers. There are some wonderful moments in this show and a few flaws, which you can read about in my review, but overall, it's a solid, happy production. Definitely something you want to take a chance on. Mamma Mia runs through May 20th. I reviewed a lot of theater in March, and I invite you to check out those reviews on MunroReview.com. I hope you didn't miss the haunting and compelling performance of Brad Myers in the Fresno City College production of The Whale. He played a 600-pound man in a fat suit. With limited mobility other than from the neck up, he relied almost exclusively on his voice and eyes to make the character work. It was a terrific, deeply affecting performance. Another production I praised was the national tour of The Sound of Music, which played two performances at the Soroyan Theater. This show might be 58 years old, going on 59, but it's still got a lot of Adel in its vice. I especially liked the young, scrappy chemistry between Maria, played by Jill Christine Wiley, and Mike McLean as Captain Von Trapp. Other reviews include my take on Fresno State's ambitious production of Lydia, which we previewed on this program last month. I found the production fascinating and exasperating. But as the first Fresno State production directed by the theater department's new Latinx theater specialist, it was a milestone. And I gave a straight-out negative review to The Star-Spangled Girl at the Second Space Theater, a Good Company production of the Neil Simon comedy. The three-person cast is valiant in terms of its energy, but the sexist script is just too dated to work today. A reminder that if you were a fan of this year's Rogue Festival, you'll find a number of articles on my site, including reviews and commentary. Plus, I feature work from some of my Fresno State journalism students, including a fun piece by Paige Gibbs about a rogue superfan. Finally, a stellar young actress named Joy Smith finished up her run as the title character in Good Company's Annie. To mark her final weekend, I checked in with her and her two sisters who were in the show with her. It's a fun story. Next up, we welcome David Fox and Jack Fortner, who are some of Fresno's biggest fans of chamber music. They're here to talk about the April 8th concert by the Alexander String Quartet. Welcome, David and Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So you have a very exciting concert coming up with the Alexander String Quartet. And so some people might not be familiar with how big of a deal this group is. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Not from an unbiased point of view because I'm a big fan of theirs, almost a groupie.
Okay.
The Alexander String Quartet has been together for 37 years. They play worldwide, have many recordings, complete cycles of Beethoven, Kodály, Shostakovich, play and teach all over the world, and they teach amateurs, adult amateurs, pre-professionals, and students at San Francisco State, where they're based.
And so they play in famous places, right? Very
Right.
well-known venues. They're really known all over the world.
All over the world, and we're very lucky to have them to come again to Fresno. They have a 10-year connection with Fresno. They were here for a summer of summer arts. They've collaborated with Andreas Wertz with a joint venture between Fresno State and San Francisco State, so that they played piano quintets in both venues. So the whole notion of collaboration and cooperation among amateurs and professionals in the music community is something that they are very indebted to and dedicated to do.
So this concert is actually sponsored by two organizations. So we've got Keyboard Concerts, yes, and we also have Orpheus Chamber Ensemble. So Jack, can you tell us, how did this collaboration happen? I know there's a lot of interconnection in the chamber music scene in Fresno.
Well, from my point of view, David said, we're going to do this year. But I liked it very much because this is our 40th anniversary, Orpheus. And one of the things that we have done over the years is wanting to collaborate and have collaborated with a number of organizations. I remember Fresno Dance Theater being one, the Fresno State Dance Studio, and we even collaborated with a rock band and with
You've done lots of things. I remember
yeah.
you highlight young, promising artists.
Yes.
Kind of give them their place in the spotlight.
Well, we can claim that in 40 years we have performed 3,500 years of music.
That is really something.
That's our claim to fame.
So Keyboard Concerts is actually a series that is mostly dedicated to the piano, obviously. Tell us about that, and how does this concert fit into the keyboard lineup?
Over the last few years, we've tried to incorporate some chamber music concerts, and it's flourished the most this year with 3 concerts. So we've called it the International Chamber Music Series, belonging to the Philip Lorenz Memorial Keyboard Concert Series.
And I just want to point out that Keyboard Concerts is world class. I mean, the artists that you bring in on a regular basis, these are the same artists that you're going to see in New York and London. I was once in Prague, and the artist who had played in Fresno the week before was in Prague. So these are really, really top-notch performers.
Although it's always been a challenge to get them to include Fresno in their biographical sketches.
Exactly. Well, that's I think that's a challenge that probably lots of Fresno arts organizations have. So Jack, Orpheus is celebrating its 40th anniversary.
Correct.
And you actually have another concert coming up later in April. So this is a busy month for you.
Yes, April 29th is the next program by the Orpheus Ensemble.
And what can people expect at that concert?
We are going to perform, the first piece is a piece that we performed in our first season, Richard Wagner's Siegfried Idol. It's about a 15-minute long piece for small chamber orchestra that he wrote for his wife Cosima's birthday and surprised her in the morning, woke her up for breakfast with this piece. That was the genesis of it. And then we're going to perform another composer that I've loved doing over the years, Toru Takemitsu, and we're doing Rain Tree, which is a trio of percussion. And for the second half of the concert, I've invited Maria Briggs, a new soprano at Fresno State, who is going to do 2 sets of early 20th century Italian songs. The second set is very interesting because it's based upon 13th century Italian lyrics. We had a terrible time finding somebody to translate the ancient Italian. And
They haven't spoken that for a long time, so you
No.
that's a tough one.
So, but I found a translator in Brazil that works for the government, and so it all worked out.
So it can take a lot of work to put on these concerts.
Oh yeah.
Well, I want to spend a little bit more time talking about the actual Alexander String Quartet. David, what can you tell us about what they're going to be playing in Fresno, and also give us some tips on how to listen to a concert like this?
Okay. Well, their concert is Sunday, April 8th at 3 o'clock in the concert hall at Fresno State. So they have 3 pieces. The first, the Beethoven String Quartet, Opus 18, number 1, which Beethoven actually didn't write first, but he liked it the best, so he put it first. And it's a wonderful transition piece from classical Mozart, Haydn into the beginning of the Romantic period.
Exactly.
And every movement is joyous and lively. The second piece is a sort of the end of the Romantic period, Shostakovich, Quartet 13. It's intense, violent at times, and features something that musicians are told never to do, which is to knock on the instrument with their bows.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a very dramatic piece. And then after the intermission, the Schumann Third String Quartet is a piece that's the height of Romanticism. Lovely themes, but very difficult. It's very exacting for the quartet, off rhythms, but you can actually go home singing some of the themes from the slow movement anyway.
So what instruments are actually represented in the quartet?
Well, Zach and Fred are the 2 violinists.
And this is Zach.
Zacharias Grafilo and Frederick Lifshitz, who are the 2 violinists. Paul Yarborough is the violist, and Sandy Wilson is the cellist, after whom the quartet is named because his first name is really Alexander.
Okay.
He's from England.
So you've gotten to know these players over the years. What are they like when they're not playing?
They're delightful, energetic. They've enjoyed the Fresno restaurant scene.
Really? So what restaurants did you take them to? Do you remember?
Well, Slate's, which closed, unfortunately, and I don't remember other places.
But they like the food.
Right.
That's good.
Sure.
And we've done house concerts with them. They were here for Summer Arts, and hope that they will be back for Summer Arts the year after next. And they've coached our amateur quartet a number of times in Fresno, San Francisco, Sonoma. So they're what I had put together as a motto is that they are exacting in their own playing, but very forgiving in teaching.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
good. That
that's
is good
nice.
to know.
That's nice.
Right.
So, Jack, we have about a minute and a half left. Can you just talk about the chamber music scene in Fresno over the years? Is it having a renaissance right now? What is the scene?
Well, that's very difficult to say. I do want to mention that we missed the 4th piece on the April 29th program.
Oh, okay. So tell us
which
about
is
that.
by another Fresno composer, Ken Furlick.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And he just had a piece that the Philharmonic
Yes, I know this. And
played.
here's the,
Through Cloudy and Cracked Lenses.
and it's a beautiful piece. It's in 2 movements. requires about 20 musicians, I forget exactly.
Really?
Yes.
So
it's
this
gonna
is
be
a
big
good-sized
boat.
chamber orchestra.
Yes,
then.
it's a fitting conclusion to our 40th anniversary season.
Well, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on
Our pleasure.
and talking about this concert. It sounds like a really fun event. And I guess one last question, David. Even if you're not a fan, if you've never been to a chamber music concert before, any advice or what do you think people should do when they go to a concert?
Just immerse yourself in the music because it's there, it surrounds you. Unlike an orchestra, which sort of is in your face in a way, for chamber music, you go into its face.
Well, fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me mention one
Okay.
more thing, which is there in April, the end of April, Jeremy Dink is coming to keyboard concerts
Jeremy
as
Dink,
well.
Yes.
another very well-known
Fantastic.
pianist.
Well-known pianist and teacher, and he's going to perform with the Fresno State Orchestra as well.
Oh,
That sounds great. That sounds great. So lots of great things happening on the classical music scene in Fresno. Well, thanks for being with us, David and Jack. Our next story is a little different because the main character is in Ghana, Africa right now, and the CMAC travel budget was a little lean this month. But we still managed to catch up with Benjamin Boone in some video clips to talk about life in Ghana and the release party for his new album, The Poetry of Jazz, which was released a few weeks ago. It's getting a lot of national attention, including a big story on National Public Radio. The reason for all the interest is the concept of the album. Ben collaborated with Fresno's Philip Levine, the U.S. Poet Laureate, in 2011 and 12. Levine was a huge jazz fan. In a number of recording sessions, Ben and some of his talented musician friends, including some very famous players, offer their jazz interpretations of some of Levine's best-known poems. One of those poems is Our Valley, which is about, you guessed it, our valley.
Our valley. We don't see the ocean, not ever. But in July and August, when the worst heat seems to rise from the hard clay of this valley, you could be walking through a fig orchard, when suddenly the wind cools, and for a moment you get a whiff of salt, and in that moment, you can almost believe something is waiting beyond the Pacheco Pass.
Ben is in Ghana right now as a Fulbright scholar teaching at the University of Ghana. I asked him what it's like to be so far away in Africa when his album was released.
I'm really thrilled that the CD's finally seen the light of day and that many of my friends and others who are fans of Philip's poetry are finally able to hear this collaboration that I did with him. Morton, David Ouse, and Gary Newmark. We ended up bringing tons of other Valley musicians in on the project, and I regret that I'm not able to be in Fresno with them to celebrate this release, but my Ghana friends and colleagues and faculty members and fellow musicians helped make it an absolutely marvelous celebration, and I hope that everyone listening can check out the CD and check out the tracks and can see the way the synergy of music and poetry work in this project. So I'm thrilled. Thanks, Donald. Hello, Fresno. Greetings from Accra, Ghana, in the University of Ghana. This is my office on a Monday evening. My son Asher is here. This is how we drink water in Ghana, with a bag, right, Asher? And we have a group from, this is the batik fabric that I made not too long ago near Cape Coast. And this is what goes on in the music department on a regular basis. This is a group from Martinique. It's here to give a workshop. You can see the security is pretty tight on the door. And these are traditional African rhythms and how to have a good time. So what do I miss the most? Well, friends, of course. That's first and foremost. I miss seeing Ray Hotoda do her first season at the Fresno Philharmonic, that's for sure. And being able to go to our favorite places like Monterey and Yosemite. But we are going to Ethiopia soon, so that makes up for it. But I miss being able to eat salads at restaurants and quinoa and pistachios and almonds. See, I'm starting to get hungry and homesick now.
This album got its start in Fresno. You might remember that the Benjamin Boone Quartet performed with Levine at a Fresno Filmworks fundraiser in 2012. That was the start of something special. A series of recording sessions followed. After Levine's death in 2015, Ben kept busy finishing up the album. He even got a few special guests to contribute to the 14-track project, including Tom Harrell, Greg Osby, and Chris Potter. So how do you celebrate an album release in Ghana? By making music, of course.
Here's some dance moves for you to learn, Fresno. Start a dance craze in Fresno. Ghana directly to Fresno.
After a story about Ben and his new album ran on NPR, it became the #1 jazz album on Amazon. Thanks for sending us those clips, Ben, and congratulations on such a fitting tribute to a great poet. For our final segment, let's take a look at the list. Here's a selection of things to do during the busy month of April. Among them, it's an exciting month for the Fresno Philharmonic. The orchestra concludes the Masterworks season on April 15th with Debussy's orchestral masterpiece, La Mer. The concert includes the Fresno Master Chorale singing Gloria, and there's even a piece by Tan Dunn that features audience participation on cell phones. But that's not all. On April 14th, the night before, the orchestra will offer an intimate evening of classical music at Bitwise South Stadium. It will be hosted by conductor Ray Hotoda, herself a big chamber music fan. Some big theater openings in April. Stageworks Fresno kicks off its 2018 season with the classic musical The Fantastics, which opens April 6th at the Fresno Art Museum. Broadway in Fresno brings back Rain, the Beatles tribute show, on April 12th. Children's Musical Theater Works brings us Legally Blonde, which opens April 13th, and which includes lots of good advice from the original Broadway blonde herself, Laura Bell Bundy, who is giving a special performance before the show opens on April 8th. The Visalia Players opens Nana's Naughty Knickers. Now, that's a show I've never seen, on April 13th. And Good Company opens the play The Heiress on April 26th. Finally, don't forget about the Fresno Art Museum, which is midway through its strong winter-spring exhibition season, including local artist Marcus Dorado. The powerful lineup includes David Tome's multimedia creations of the habitats of exotic birds. It's a must-see for birders and nature lovers out there. Well, that wraps it up for this month's episode of the Munro Review. Be sure to keep up online at munroreview.com. A big thank you to our volunteer crew. Thanks again to our guests, David Fox and Jack Fortner, and to Benjamin Boone from halfway around the world. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.